You've been waiting all week for that Saturday show. Tune in, see what happened, let your troubles go. Work real hard, now it's time to take it slow. Kick back and relax with that Saturday show.
COVID updates, Israeli hackers, local legislator in hot water, taxpayers in Albuquerque getting financially fleeced, and so much more. Welcome to another edition of That Saturday Show. I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and the show is sponsored by the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice, joined today by our dear friend Lara Dale, who you'll be hearing from shortly. But first, let me get this off my chest. New Mexico, and that includes Albuquerque, currently the sixth most likely state to be hard hit by the end of rent and mortgage eviction moratoriums. Yes, Albuquerque has introduced a rental assistance program that will hopefully do some good, but I can't help thinking about how our resources get depleted needlessly by projects like building a soccer stadium with costs approaching $100 million. More of that later. The soccer team, I might mention, is owned by a man who is worth an estimated $27 billion, that's with a B, and who owns 3 other soccer teams around the world. Why can't he build his own stadium? We can certainly put our funds to better use, helping the poor and the homeless to navigate the rapidly increasing costs to live in the 505. And while we're on the subject of billionaires, keep an eye on the developments and the spaceport, that new recreation spot, which will be a new recreational facility and amusement park for the rich, and it'll continue to cost our government while the cost burden gets passed on to the poor and the vanishing middle class. Then there's Avangrid. Yes, Avangrid, the new partner to PNM. How do they get past the legal reviews to do business here? Seems like people in high places turned a blind eye to the background of this very shady company with its less than 2% investment in renewable energy. Follow the money. Bravo to Metro DC police officers and the Capitol Police who shared their riveting yet heart-wrenching stories about the domestic terrorist attack on the Capitol on January 6th. But shame on the white supremacist party, formerly known as the Republican Party, which continues to promote the big lies about who won the election and claims that the January 6th attack was actually a friendly and nonviolent visit to the Capitol. Oh, you gullible fools who believe anything Agent Orange tells you, and you turn around and spew it out like it's gospel. Shame. Finally, what's happening here with our elected officials? It's reported that State Representative Sheryl William Stapleton is under investigation for alleged racketeering and money laundering involving her relationship with Albuquerque Public Schools. Search warrants from the state's Attorney General's office were served on the representative Wednesday morning at her home and her businesses. All the details are still emerging, but this is a shocker for our community. So stay tuned. I've known Sheryl for a long time, and this is a serious, serious disappointment. Now, immediately following Good News News, we're going to be speaking with our great friend of this show, the amazing Lara Dale, with some alarming news about Israel, our $3 billion a year welfare child who has been spying on their benefactor, the United States, for years, and now is exposed for hacking U.S. citizens at will. That is an issue that is really troubling. And I want all of you, when you hear this news from Lara, please pay attention, because our tax dollars are going to somebody that we think is our friend and ally. And they in turn are spying on us and hacking everyday citizens, the same way we're claiming that Russia is doing it, the same way that we're claiming China is doing it, Israel is doing it, and we're paying them $3 billion a year to do it. There's something radically wrong with that relationship, and something has got to be done. Let's have your voices heard when we hear from Lara Dale. All right, let's go on now to Good News. Hasani, are you out there?
Thank you, Jim, and welcome to Good News. I'm your correspondent, Hasani Olujimi, and I'm Gugu for Good News. The goal of this segment is to inspire and uplift you, the viewer, with nothing but good news. Let's jump right in, shall we? Our first story reads like this. As soon as Anastasia Pangonis jumps into any body of water she's familiar with, she's in her element. Let's continue, shall we? On the second day of U.S. Paralympic trials, Anastasia broke the world record in the S11 400 freestyle twice. She said it first in the preliminaries and then later breaking it again in the finals. Being familiar to her surroundings is very important because Anastasia is a Paralympic swimmer who is blind. At age of 11, she began to experience trouble reading and keeping her eyes on the ball while playing soccer. Diagnosed with a genetic disease, her doctor recommended swimming, a non-contact sport. This was a great suggestion because she found herself struggling emotionally. Now, she says everyone is super ignorant when it comes to blindness. They think you have to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way, and that is not all the case. Just showing people this is what blind is, this is what blind looks like, this is what I can do as a blind person. Now, wow, isn't that good news? Congratulations, Anastasia, and America wishes you the best to bring home the gold. Yes, we do. Now, I wonder, why can elephants swim wherever they want to? They always have their trunks. Okay, I could have asked, what is the best exercise for swimmers? Pull-ups. Okay, let's move on quickly then. Okay. Comfort dogs arrive from several states to lend a paw to comfort Miami condo rescuers. When times get tough, man's best friend can often be the keystone in keeping our spirits from sinking too low. Let's learn a little bit more. 9 golden retrievers have been brought in from out of state to help first responders cope with the emotional toil of the Miami Surfside condo collapse. These comfort canines work just like therapy dogs. Their job right now is to help rescuers cope with the emotional toil of the collapse. These dogs are here for you, says Bonnie Fear, the Lutheran Church Charity's K9 Comfort Dog Ministry. Hallelujah. A lot of times the first responders come up, they'll fall to their knees, they'll start crying, or they will smile. We try not to say anything. We let the dog be the bridge for those people to grieve the loss or whatever they're feeling. Therapy dogs from Miami-Dade County Fire Department are already on the job, which represents a variety of large and small dog breeds. Comfort dogs are strong and well-proven therapy for depression, anxiety, and other forms of distress. Now, isn't that good news? Bravo. I love hearing good news behind the scenes, especially in this type of story. We know the building falling down, but we didn't hear about the good things that are happening on the ground, such as this, I might say. Well, so on and so forth. Let's check in with our favorite sassy grandmother, Little Big Mama. What do you have in store for us today, lady?
Thank you, Hasani. I just want to tell you and your viewers about a conversation I had with my husband not too long ago about getting old. Well, he came in the kitchen the other day talking about,
You know you're getting old when your hunting trips are for your reading glasses.
I told him, you know you're getting old when you get the urge but can't remember what for. And he said,
You know you're getting old when your toupee turns gray.
I said, you know you're getting old when you forget to zip up. You're getting older when you forget to zip down. And he had the nerve to tell me, when you're getting old, your back goes out more than you do. But I got him, Hasani, and viewers, I got him. I said, you know you're getting old when you can whistle while brushing your teeth. Bye, baby.
Well, Little Big Mama, you know you're getting old when trying one on means fastening your medical alert bracelet. The best way to turn a frown upside down is to get goo-goo for good news. Don't hold that one against me, y'all. We'll see you right here next time on That Saturday Show. Myself, your correspondent, and Little Big Mama, of course. Next time on That Saturday Show with more good news.
Thank you, Hasani. We always use good news. Always can use it. We're here with our great friend, Lara Dale, and we've got a really riveting topic that we're going to discuss today, and that has to do with Israel and what shenanigans they're up to. Lara, welcome back to That Saturday Show. Tell us what's going on.
Well, the thing I'd like to start out with is I got into Palestinian activism out of Native American activism and the issue of occupation, which is literally what the United States is. I mean, if you get right down to it. And so I learned about Palestine, I would like you to understand, from Jews of conscience and Native American activists, both of whom had a particular perspective on this that I'd never heard before. And so one of the things that's disturbing to me is as we're sitting here, if we go back to the Balfour Declaration, where Israel was handed to basically Zionists, we're talking over 100 years now. That was 1817. Or no, 1917, excuse me. Time is flying, okay? But it's over 100 years now. And so one of the things people need to understand is that when I speak about this, I will probably get attacked and people will say I'm anti-Semitic, and my answer back is Semites are people whose bloodlines are from the Middle East. And so the standard American construct is a Semite is a Jew. And yes, there are many Semitic Jews, but the interesting thing is Palestinians are truly Semitic.
That's right.
So I am pro-Semitic because I'm pro-Palestine. And protesting the occupation actually makes me someone who is very pro-Semitic. And so I would like people to start taking the power away from that word, because it's what the Zionists have been using to silence us for a very, very long time. Literally over 100 years, they have been allowed to kill Palestinians on their own land with impunity by using the term anti-Semitism when people like me speak up about it. So part of my educational thing is let's take back the power of that terminology. Palestinians are Semites. Protecting Palestine, protesting the occupation is a pro-Semitic activity.
Absolutely.
All right? Now, to get into something, I want to bring up a slide. There are some search terms now on the internet. This is breaking news, so I don't have substantive stories about it, but there's something called the Pegasus Project. So what you are seeing up on the screen is the search terms you should use to do your own research on this, because I don't have by any stretch of the imagination the most absolute terms on this, because this is being investigated right now. So Amnesty International did a report about the Israel NSO organization, which is basically a spyware group. And the spyware is called Pegasus. And so Amnesty International's investigation about this is called the Pegasus Project. So I'm giving you search terms up on the screen so that you can look up for yourself what's going on. But it used to be with the Pegasus Project, which they discovered, when it was first going, they could hack you through you just putting some kind of app on your phone, and then they could infiltrate. Apparently, Amnesty International discovered that they can now, you don't have to even touch, like accidentally put some app on your phone. Like, they can literally just triangulate and target you. And we're talking 24/7 surveillance. And it's so bad that Macron in France has launched an investigation. I understand that some people in the Indian parliament are looking into it. So Israel is denying that that they were spying on anybody here in the States, or that their software was used for that, or blah, 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 blah. This is so bad that I understand, and this is not news that's totally substantiated, but I understand that Facebook is actually kind of backing out of their relationship with them because they're not sure if they're being hacked as well. But again, this is research that you should do for yourself. But the fascinating connection, which everything seems to come back to Harvey Weinstein right now, is that the Black Cube organization that he was using to harass his victims is an Israeli organization. They are actually, some of the worst of the Israeli intel people started this company, and were using it in these really horrific ways to drive these women crazy. And so what we're looking at right now that Americans just need to face and need to start calling your representatives about is the fact that we pay $3 billion every year to a place that is spying on us, which could be treason, actually, if they investigated it. So this means that the international criminal courts are also going to be looking into this. The other fascinating thing is the second that they say Iran or Iraq might have nuclear capabilities, we scream and yell and we're going to sanction and whatever. This has been known for decades now that Israel is sitting on at least 100 nuclear warheads.
Right.
Insider stories say 300. We're going to start a war with Iraq over the possibility they might have the things to make it with, and we're going to give Israel $3 billion when they're sitting on 300 nuclear warheads? So the reason I'm talking about this is because the American public needs to do research. They need to go look up all of these search terms, find out for yourself, and start calling your Congress people. We've got OCC, we've got Rashida Tlaib, we've got a bunch of people in office right now that you can be calling and demand that they do an investigation. And the fascinating thing is, this is tangential with Ronan Farrow doing a very compelling project, or a podcast, about the fact that the Black Cube organization was spying on him when he was starting to do the stories about all of the women that Weinstein was persecuting. So Ronan Farrow was actually threatened rather dangerously by Black Cube. And so all of this is coming out. And since American public doesn't seem to care about how many bodies and blood there is of Palestinians, which is utter human rights atrocities, but we don't seem to care, I do know that across both sides of the aisle, the one thing we care about is national security. The one thing we can get both Republicans and Democrats to agree on is national security. So my point is, this is a massive breach of national security. So call your representatives, look into this for yourself, and let's start a major investigation on this.
Thanks so much for that, Laura. It's just tragic that, again, as I said in the intro, that, this country is spending $3 billion of our tax money annually to send to Israel. And then Israel turns around, and this is the kind of stuff that they do to the people who are paying the bill for the shenanigans that are going on over there. Nuclear weapons, hacking, spying, remember the spying incident that happened several years back? What was the guy's name? Pollard or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. An Israeli spy spying on the United States. This is crazy stuff. So yeah, it's about time we raise our voices and let people know that we don't like it and we're not going to put up for it anymore, So I really appreciate you coming on with this. Thanks so much for this.
Absolutely. Thank you for providing the space to say these important things.
Thank you so much. COVID, what's happening there? We've got an interview today with the New Mexico Department of Health Deputy Secretary, Dr. Lara Parajon. And let's hear from her. I'm glad she shared some time with us.
Welcome back to That Saturday Show. I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and we are honored today to have with us the Deputy Cabinet Secretary for Health for the state of New Mexico, Dr. Lara Parajon. I hope I got that pronounced right. Thank you. We've invited Dr. Parajon on this morning because as we look around the country, we are hearing about this resurgence of COVID, especially coming in the form of this new Delta variant. And as New Mexico has seemingly done pretty darn well on this first round of stemming the tide, we're now, surrounded by states who haven't done so well. And so I'm just curious as to, where we are and what we can expect here in New Mexico. Dr. Parajon, thank you. I know you've got a busy schedule, but I appreciate you for taking this time to join That Saturday Show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be able to be with you this morning. So regarding the Delta variant is a variant of the original COVID virus. And so one of the issues with the COVID variant is that the more people who are not vaccinated, the more chance a virus has to mutate inside someone's body. And then sometimes that results in a more infectious virus. Sometimes it results in a less infectious virus. So the Delta virus that we have now, the Delta version of the COVID virus, is one that has mutated to one that is much more infectious than the original virus. So the Delta virus is now overtaking the other variants of the virus in the country. Right now, we have 80% in the United States of the Delta virus in the population. So it's definitely rapidly overtaking other forms of the virus, and that's because of its highly infectious nature, right? It's much more infectious. They believe up to twice as more infectious than other versions. So in New Mexico, we actually have approximately, our epidemiologists, they are actually tracking the virus, and we believe there's about 55% of the variant is in New Mexico as well. So that means we have to be extra careful here in New Mexico because the biggest, most important thing we can do to prevent the spread of the virus is to get vaccinated. If you get the two vaccines, Pfizer or Moderna, if you just get one dose, it is not effective. It's most effective when you get both doses. So we know in New Mexico, there are a bunch of people who didn't go get the second dose. So one of the best things we can do right now to protect ourselves, if we have only gotten one dose, is to get that second dose. And then if you have been vaccinated, know that you're protected against the Delta variant. And then if you haven't gotten vaccinated yet, we encourage you to get vaccinated, and it's now more, easier to get vaccinated now more than ever. You can just call our toll-free number. Should I share that with you?
Please do, yes.
It's 1-855-600-3453.
And we'll put that up on the screen as well.
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay.
So, yeah, so you can definitely call. The other thing you can do is you can schedule online at vaccineNewMexico.org, or you can even just go to your local pharmacy. You can see signs everywhere that says get your vaccine. And right now, it's children's season for getting shots to go back to school. So Got Shots New Mexico. You can also go to, there's a whole series of pharmacies that you can also find online that have extended hours for families getting their kids vaccinated for school. So we really have a lot of options.
So you've raised a couple of really important topics that I want our viewers to just latch on to. You know, first is, I know that there's a lot of discussion nationally about the unvaccinated versus the vaccinated, and how the unvaccinated actually could pose a danger to everyone with regard to further spreading, particularly this new Delta variant, and making, you know, and bringing our numbers back up in terms of hospitalizations and, God forbid, deaths as well. But also, if you could talk about what plans are underway for instructing our children going back to school now. I know there's discussion about masking, asking children to wear masks in the classroom as a precaution as well. Are there plans underway for giving us new guidance for children as well as for adults, particularly those of us who are already vaccinated, as to what we can do to protect ourselves and others?
We'll definitely share new guidance as that comes out. We have a great communications team that's here in our Department of Health that as soon as we have any guidance, we share that. Currently, we're mostly asking people to get vaccinated as the best way to protect yourselves. And, you know, people who are unvaccinated, if you are, you know, considering getting vaccinated, you have concerns, you have questions, definitely ask your, you know, your provider, your friend, someone you trust about the vaccine, because I think a lot of people often think that, oh, if you're unvaccinated, that's, you know, why are you unvaccinated? Sometimes people have a lot of questions or concerns. And so trying to answer those questions and concerns, but really right now, if you are unvaccinated, the safest way to protect yourself is to wear a mask, to social distance. And so our children are still vulnerable who are under 12. You know, that's why we're still having children wear masks, because that's the best way we can protect children. And then if you're unvaccinated, the best way to protect yourself from getting COVID, you know, COVID, a lot of people think if you're healthy, you don't need to get the vaccine.
Right.
You know, like, I'm healthy, I don't need to get the vaccine. But we also have to think about, there are some people who do get long-term COVID, and that's not very fun. You know, you have longer term effects of that. If you get COVID, even if you're healthy, you can get that. And then also, you're also trying to protect your older people and people who are immune compromised. They, you know, they don't mount as effective response to the vaccine if you have an immune problem. So really the best way for us to protect older people and others in the community is really to get vaccinated. So yeah, I really do believe that, you know, the virus, you know, is really the best way to combat it is
Right.
get vaccinated. But if you don't get vaccinated, please protect yourself and wear a mask, you know.
Exactly. So at the Peace and Justice Center, we've already returned to encouraging and even mandating mask wearing when people come inside the building or when we have meetings. You know, and that's just us, you know, getting one step ahead of this, and hopefully, you know, making it so that nobody can say that they came to the Peace and Justice Center and contracted COVID as a result of being there. So we want to protect everybody, and if you know anything about our center, you know, there are lots of older people that come to the Peace and Justice Center, and us in particular, people of my age and older. You know, we want to make certain that those protections are in place. So I guess my last question before I ask you if there's anything that I may have missed, um, comes back to the question of people who are unvaccinated and vaccine resistant, if you will. What can we do as community to further encourage people to get the vaccinations?
Yeah, I think what you're doing right now, Jim, is excellent, right? Having a forum where you have some questions that people might have, and then being able to listen to people's concerns, and then meeting people where they are. So, you're concerned about, for instance, fertility and vaccine, we have a lot of studies and data showing that it's safe for people who are pregnant and people who are of childbearing age to get the vaccine, things like that, where you have a forum. So when people have questions, you can answer those questions, letting people know that it's the best way for us to open up our economy again, right? The more
Right.
pool of people who are unvaccinated, the more chance we are to get new variants, right? So the best way to beat this is by getting vaccinated and beating this variant. I think that the best way to beat the variant is to get vaccinated so that variant cannot take hold, right? And so I think, just reminding people, right, that, it's safe, it's effective. You don't need an ID, you don't need insurance, it's free. Like, what is free in the United States?
Right.
There are not a lot of things that are free. This is a vaccine that's actually coveted around the world. Like, there are many places in the world that don't even get the vaccine right now, and here we have it for free. So I think just reminding people, and then also it's up to us too. Like, if we have neighbors who need a ride to get the vaccine, helping them get a ride, helping other people to get the vaccine and encourage them to do so is really helpful. So I don't know. I think it's really a people to people thing right now, getting in our communities, like just like you're doing, sharing with people, answering their questions, and helping people, overcome their hesitancy.
You speak of rides, and one of the things that we did in response, one of our older volunteers got her invitation to get vaccinated, and she said, "Well, I don't have a way to get there, and it's far away from where I live." So we found somebody in the office who said, "I will take you and wait for you as long as it takes," and that's what happened. And as a result of that, our board said, we need to do something more. So we've had 2 vaccination events at our center.
Wow.
And if we've got to go back and do it again, we will do it again. We want to do whatever we can to play our part in helping to get people vaccinated. And so, we're proud to do that. And if we're called upon to do it again, we'll step up. So I appreciate that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any more messages you'd like to share with the public before we close out?
Oh no, thank you so much, Jim. I'm really appreciative that you had these events. And yeah, I want to let other people know that if they have a trusted location that people want to have a vaccine at, we are available for that as well. So if you want to have more events, Jim, or other people in the community, we can bring you a team and people can get vaccines right then and there. And you just let us know and we'll be there for you guys. So
And you've got great teams, because early last year we brought in a testing team from the health department, and they were absolutely wonderful. I think we tested over 30 people in a matter of like 3 hours, and it was a wonderful experience. So, like I said, we continue to want to do everything we can, because this affects all of us. It really does. It really does. Yeah.
and thank you so much for being a partner with us. So
Well, thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciate that. Dr. Lara Parajon, the Deputy Cabinet Secretary for the New Mexico Department of Health, we thank you for taking this time with us, and just consider us a partner and call on us in any way we possibly can help.
thank you so much, Jim.
Thanks so much, and have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Get your COVID shots, folks. Don't fool around. Don't put yourself in danger. Don't put others in danger, friends, family, just people on the streets, your community. Get those COVID shots. You need them, and we need you to take care of all of us, including yourselves. Just to let you know, in a few weeks, we're going to be featuring a special segment that involves our student interns from Gen X School. They're working on a special program that's going to become a regular here, so stay tuned for that. Yay. Now, we're bringing you part 2 of our interview with Eddie Paulsgrove on illegal Rio Rancho dumping and climate change issues. This continues to be another one of those riveting stories that all of us need to be concerned about. So let's go to Eddie Paulsgrove and part 2. Laura, you're going to love this.
Oh, this is absolutely essential watch. Please, everybody watch this if you care.
Welcome back to That Saturday Show. I'm Jim Harvey, your host. And we brought you last week a pretty alarming discussion with Eddie Paulsgrove, who told us about dumping and landfill disposal and all kinds of nasty stuff that's happening, particularly out in the Rio Rancho area, but something that affects all of us right here in Albuquerque as well. It's such an important topic because of the fact that it's still an unresolved issue, and we wanted to bring Eddie back. So Eddie, welcome back to the show. And as we get started, I know that one of the hot issues we left off on last week was about the landfill disposal issue. So bring us back on back to discussion on that and tell us where we are.
Well, thanks, Jim. I appreciate the time to discuss these important topics with you and your listeners. And yes, what we talked about is in March of 2018, the Rio Rancho landfill had 288 tons of radioactive waste disposed on the ground at the landfill. And we know it was radioactive waste based on documentation, analysis, and data from 2009, 2008. And the part that I really left out last week that I'd really like to bring up is the desalination project. We know was successful because there was a report done in 2010. Now, the desalination project occurred in 2009. 2010 was an after-action report. They reported that the processed water was basically a non-detect for total radium and arsenic. So we know that the process, whether it was reverse osmosis, different treatments, did remove the total radium and arsenic out of the processed water stream and created a concentrated waste stream, very, very dangerous. Now, subsequent to this 2009 study, another report dated April of 2011 was generated. And what they were doing now was following up on a preliminary engineering design for maybe a facility, water desal facility out there at these briny well sites. What I want to do here is read to you a quote of how this preliminary engineering report addressed the concentrated waste stream of arsenic and radionuclides. And what they said is, and this is a quote, the precipitate will be dewatered to the minimum practical volume, placed directly in shipping containers, and disposed of in a licensed hazardous waste facility. Concentrated stream will not be exposed to air or soil, and the handling facilities will have appropriate secondary containment and segregation from other parts of the treatment plant. What we're saying is that this concentrated waste stream needed to be addressed by itself.
So you know what my big question is, did it happen?
Well, it did not happen, and that's the big problem. What happened is during the 2009 processing, everything got sent into the same big impoundment. Now, see, the problem here gets to be in October 2011. New Mexico Environment Department responded to this preliminary engineering report by stating that, one of the goals for any facility is going to be to establish a contractual agreement with the licensed hazardous waste landfill in Andrews, Texas. So what NMED was saying at that point in time is, hey, there's not even a place in our state we can even get rid of this. It's got to go to a recognized licensed hazardous waste facility in Andrews, Texas, which is actually currently in the news today.
It speaks volumes.
So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because of the importance of the characterization of this waste by these contractors and engineering firms, and the recognition by NMED of that waste. This is the same waste that was generated and disposed of at the landfills, except they just mixed it up. They didn't segregate it. They mixed it up with all of this other contaminated salt, dangerous salt in and of itself. But they introduced this really dangerous concentrated waste stream into it, and that changes the scope of everything based on.
Sure it does. Yeah.
Based on that. Now, we're going to talk at the end here about, what the public can do. Now that they know this additional little bit of information, what do we get out of it? But before I get to that point, I wanted to bring up, this is part 2. And it's part 2 because after the March 2018 disposal of radioactive waste in our landfill, the same briny well managers, I'm just going to call them the managers, came in the next year in 2019, brought 5,000 gallons of this same high level radioactive brine water, brought it into Rio Rancho again, and disposed of it in the Rio Rancho wastewater treatment infrastructure. Okay. Now, how did that happen? I mean, yeah, of course. To me, it's how did it happen? Well, what turned out is in June of 2019, New Mexico Environment Department told the managers that their request for temporary permission to discharge on their briny well site, way out there by the Laguna Pueblo, which is way out about 10, 15 miles west of Rio Rancho, their request to discharge on site was denied because an overall permit process they were entering into, the managers with NMED, was generating what's called significant public interest. Important phrase. I always capitalize it. Significant public interest.
Public interest, right?
See,
right.
It is. Right. When it comes to court decisions and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but what NMED did tell the managers is that, well, if you want to, you can submit a notice of intent to discharge off-site. Send that to us. We'll evaluate. We'll see what we can do. Well, a month later, July 2019, the managers came back and said, we're not going to need to do that. We're not going to send a notice of intent because we're not going to discharge off-site. What we're going to do is we're going to get our water samples that we need, and all the excess water we're going to put into these big tanks called Baker. They hold about 30,000 gallons apiece. Have 3 of them. They said, what we're going to do is get our sample, the excess water, we're just going to re-inject it back into the extraction.
What?
No, that's what they said. And they came back and said they were fairly successful. But apparently they couldn't get 15,000 gallons back in there.
Good grief.
What did they do? Here's what they did. The following month, in August 22nd, they told the city of Rio Rancho, this is what NMED has relayed. Managers told the city of Rio Rancho and the treatment facility managers, personnel, that, hey, it's just brine. They didn't tell them about any radionuclides. They didn't tell them about these high concentrations of arsenic, total radium, and chlorides and salt. Well, chloride. But, they didn't tell them about these dangerous concentrations. So Rio Rancho gave them permission. Hey, go ahead and send 5,000 gallons of brine. It'll help flush out the sewer lines. I mean, they were trying to look at a win-win. This guy's just add brine. It's no big deal. Processed through our treatment. Well, turns out that it's against federal law to send radionuclides through a treatment facility like that. It's also against the city of Rio Rancho ordinances, and it had other state regulatory ramifications as well.
Wouldn't they know this? Wouldn't they know this ahead of time?
Managers?
Right.
Yes. I cannot help but think they would. On staff, they had a environmental consulting group. They had a professional engineer, licensed, registered professional engineer. So, they had the expertise on staff that they should have known this. Had they told the city of Rio Rancho the true composition of that water, then they wouldn't have received permission, of course. Now, here's a little twist in there. There's a little twist. The managers had a water quality analysis report supposedly sent to a city employee, but they used the wrong email address. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how that even happened.
Yeah.
But a key point to that is, funny thing is that water quality report listed the total radium concentration at, like I said last week, 85 picocuries per liter. That's the number everybody used, even these folks that did the illicit disposal.
Right.
So NMED had to report to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency about this discharge. What they did is they told the EPA, they described it as illicit. It was an illicit discharge of historically high levels of radionuclides, arsenic, gross alpha, gross beta, other radionuclides, as well as high chloride sulfates, things like that, total dissolved solids. And what they did is they told the EPA that as far as they knew, no one was really made aware of true concentrations of it. And in fact, internal emails within NMED, they just flat out came out and said that the city workers and the contract workers at the water treatment facility, they were only told it was brine. That's flat out what they said. And I have all these documents. I'm not making this stuff up.
Right.
I wish I was just making this up, to be honest with you, because this is so crazy. Because now's when we get to the thing that just is really upsetting to me, and I find it the most egregious bad government I've ever seen, honestly. What happened then after NMED communicated with the U.S. EPA, and when I found out about this, it was a few months afterwards that I found out. I responded to the Environment Department and said, "Hey, I'd like to request a copy of your enforcement action."
Sure.
Must have opened because you called it an illicit disposal. They didn't have permission for an off-site disposal. You must have generated, a record of decision, a ROD, which is what, when I was a regulator for the Corps of Engineers, we had an enforcement action. We developed a ROD, a record of decision. And just as a little segue, I helped develop the South Pacific Division's non-compliance guidance for the South Pacific Division. So when it comes to non-compliance and enforcement actions, I feel like I'm on firm ground when I say what I think really actually should have happened.
I would think so. Yeah.
So what happened is the New Mexico Environment Department came back to me when I made my request. They said, Eddie, we did not find a violation of state law in this action, and there are no records to provide you because we made this decision based on internal exchanges. I guess what they were talking about is they all sat around in a room and decided there was no violation. No reason to create a record of decision, and they had an attorney sitting in there with them so that they could say, now it's actually attorney-client privilege. We can't even discuss with you what we discussed.
No way.
I have never seen a more egregious, arbitrary capriciousness an abuse of discretion in my life, because
Exactly.
all we're looking for is, how did you make your decision? We're not going to tell you. You got to be kidding me, man.
That's the loss.
That wouldn't hold. I've talked to a couple of attorneys, and they're like, that doesn't even really make sense. I don't see how that could, attorney-client privilege is pretty tough to overcome, but this doesn't even make sense. So that's to me, we're looking at a pattern in practice again. If I'm going to be what I think is, we have the landfill people in March of 2018 saying, hey, we put it on the ground because we were told it's clean fill. And you've got 2019, you've got the city of Rio Rancho and the waste treatment facility operators, and they're like, well, we let them dump it because we were told it was just brine. Okay, is there something happening here? And what about NMED in all this?
That's a huge part of the question. There is NMED's role in all of this. So it looks like everything has devolved into just ongoing mismanagement of the process, first of all, and then we've got deceptive practices, we've got misinformation, and we've got just outright cover-ups going on. This is scandalous stuff, Eddie. Scandalous stuff. What's next? We've got just a little bit less than a minute. Again, I'm going to ask you the same question as I did last week. What can we as citizens do?
Well, by the time this airs, of course, it's pre-recorded. By the time this airs, I'm hoping that your viewers will be able to go to a site called Common Ground Rising. All one word, Common Ground Rising. They have a Facebook, and it's also commongroundrising.org. So there's a Facebook page, Common Ground Rising. What we're hoping to do is to create a serious petition. I'm hoping your viewers will go to that website or go to the site, and if it takes signing up a little bit or ways that we can communicate, because if we don't have our format exactly correct at that time, it will be soon. So we want to be able to contact as many people as we can. Send this petition. I want to send it to the governor. Absolutely to the governor. I want to send it to the U.S. EPA's Inspector General.
Yes.
If you've got questions about that, I'd like to send it to the AG here, New Mexico Attorney General.
Right.
And send it to any of the politicians that would find this helpful. We've got a governor who's looking for re-election. I mean, come on, step up. We need somebody to step up. We want to make sure we can't have NMED saying we're not going to disclose our decision making in an issue of significant public interest. That's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
It just shouldn't be allowed.
So what we're going to do is we're going to post it commongroundrising.org on the show. But in addition to that, we're going to get this information out through every other outreach vehicle we have and invite organizations. And we have, for example, we have a very active climate justice committee here at the Center for Peace and Justice. And I'm going to pass this on to them and let them run with it as well. So there are a lot of outlets, but we're going to get the word out. And let's get this petition going. Let's get it going.
We're going to try our best. They're kind of now, these kinds of activities are kind of beyond my wheelhouse when it comes to that kind of organization. But still, I'm going to participate whatever it takes, man.
We're going to be right front and center on this with you, okay?
I appreciate it, Jim.
Eddie Paulsgrove, thank you once more. And to all of our viewers, let's look at this. Let's take it seriously. It's a time for a very important call to action. You've been watching that Saturday show, and now back to the studio. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sweet Georgia, the ghosts are out. Blind eyes and grinning faces under the swirling sheets of white and scarlet. Yes, I know. Should be a nighttime story, should be a nightmare, but no, it's all reality. So they go over the streets and alleys, under the guise of rallies, compromising everything worth fighting for. They meet nowhere of poison, the marbles, bare guns frozen, sides already chosen. The ghosts are out, but some won't run away. When it seems history is here to stay. Some keep on sleeping, others dream it's safe to sleep. Some never sleep till they awaken their dreams. Sweet Georgia, sweet dream in Georgia. We can breathe, Georgia. Yeah, you'll be on our minds. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-da-da. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-do-do-do-ba-ba-da-do. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-da-da. Ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-do. The gates are down, broken doors and disgraces. Phantoms come out creeping from their dark hiding places. And they know, but turn the other way. The twisted tongues, now they've got nothing to say. So they go where bodies hit the floor, where they suffocated voices just a summer before. And we know silence heard around the world. No fist comes down like condos bleeding to be heard. But hope was sowed in soil in 10 years of sweat. Some won't remember, but we'll never forget. Some never sleep, they dream just so we can sleep. The dreams awake, the nightmare breaks, and we believe. Thank God we can believe in sweet Georgia. Sweet dream in Georgia. We can breathe, Georgia. Yeah, you'll be on our minds. Sweet Georgia. Sweet dream, Georgia. We can breathe, Georgia. You'll be on, yeah, you'll be on our minds. You'll be on our minds.
Until the next time, it's time to say goodbye. When you out here in the streets, keep it real, 505. We love everybody, we just want to let you know. Thanks for tuning in to that Saturday show.